All right, everyone. Now, this is kind of like a post Emmys video, and keep in mind, in this video, I'm not really going to be talking about the apparently the case of Wanda, the woman from that radio show that Katt Williams was on last Friday, where he literally just roasted her. It was just, I ain't gonna lie, it was incredibly funny. I'm still rewatching it, the last 5 minutes of that interview when he goes in on her. That was just insane. But I'm not really going to talk about, apparently, him being a gun being pointed at him by her husband, I believe. And this is just me giving my open thoughts about this. I've already done a video on the actual interview and Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart and whatnot, but I just want to talk about Katt Williams for a couple minutes. And first off, congrats to him for winning, I believe, his first Emmy, if I'm not mistaken. And the fact of, asking pretty much an obvious question, but is Katt Williams bitter? Now, I've said it in a couple of videos before that I don't really find Tiffany Haddish that funny, but in no way, shape, or form do I ever want to imply that I am knocking her work ethic. Like, the fact that she's been in the game for like, what, 15, 16 plus years. And I've said it time and time again. I've seen her in multiple TV shows and a couple movies here and there in like cameo guest spots. I do know there were a few shows she's actually like had like a reoccurring or a main role in it, but I am more familiar with seeing her in those blink and you miss moments, and I would laugh. But when I think of Katt Williams, because when Tiffany Haddish is all about the loud, ratchet, ghetto black female, but with Katt Williams, it's the same thing in terms of him being a pimp. So it's kind of like, how can you knock someone for taking advantage of the opportunity that's been given to them? Yeah, it's typecasting, playing the same role, but there are a lot of actors and actresses who pretty much play the same role in almost every movie or TV show they're in. But I mean, nobody really knocks them for that. And with Katt Williams, it was all pimping, from Friday After Next to the Pimp Chronicles to most of his early stand-up. And if you look at, and his early stand-up is my favorite. Don't get me wrong. I love his early stand-up. Same thing with Kevin Hart. It's like, I do feel in a lot of ways he has become a bit stale. But here's my thing with that. I really admire his work ethic, on social media. I follow him on Instagram and whatnot. He's either in the gym, on the set of a new project, hanging out with his family, and I just love the fact that Kevin Hart has become a brand. He's not just doing stand-up in movies. He has the the Laugh Out Loud app or whatever, where it's like comedians, where there's like old school stand-up, new skits and projects and whatnot. And I just love the fact that he's establishing himself in more than one venue. That way, when the time comes when most of the world is like, Kevin Hart, he's played out, he still has a bunch of different things that he's making money off from, and that's what's good. It's like, even if my jokes and whatnot are played out, I'm still generating funding by owning certain things, which is amazing. So one thing I'm not going to do is try to give off the vibe that I don't think that these people deserved to be where they are right now. But the thing is, and I think Kev on Stage actually did a very, very good video about this a couple days ago, talking about Katt Williams' rant on the radio and about Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish. And I mean, he said it best about how, sorry, I hit my mic there. It doesn't matter if you think they're funny. The fact that they're still in the game means that there is a large amount of people out there who do find them funny. I mean, like, even if I don't find Tiffany Haddish's jokes, my cup of tea, there's obviously a market out there who do. Amy Schumer, I believe that's her name. I mean, I really only heard of her prominently during the Monique Netflix boycott saga of 2018, during the opening months of 2018. And same rules apply. I mean, personally, not my cup of comedy, but at the same time, she obviously has a huge fan base. So what does it matter of my opinion? And it's the same thing with this channel. I mean, there are people who are like, man, you talk too much. Why don't you just play episodes and stuff like that? Well, it really doesn't matter what those handful of people think, because obviously there's over 45,000 people who do enjoy this channel and the content I post. So why am I going to worry about that, the crumbs while I still have a few loaves of bread on the shelf. You know, as long as I'm supplying them with good, decent content that, you know, gets some views, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You're not going to be marketable to everyone. You're going to have a specific audience, and, you know, they'll love it. Same thing with like Tyler Perry movies, not just TV shows and all, but I'm just speaking to movies. Typically when I went to like the Boo Madea movie, and I forgot what other Tyler Perry movie. I've been to a couple Tyler Perry films. Yeah. I went to the theaters for both of the Madea movies, the Halloween ones. Mostly white people in the audience. I mean, it was me. I remember one time I was like the only black person in there. And then when I went to the sequel, it was me and maybe 6 other black people. And when it comes to the laughs and whatnot, it was mostly white people, like after every joke. And I'm just like, man, I've heard Tyler Perry, Madea, Joe, or Hattie or whatever making the same jokes and like every play, every TV show, but the white people just ate it up. And it's just like, well, you know, that's usually the target demographic. That's not to say that it's not a black movie, considering it's mostly a black cast, but at the same time, you know, how many times can we hear you know, a penis joke or a child abuse joke and laugh at it? So it doesn't really matter, because, you know, being bitter, it doesn't make sense, because that means you're just a hypocrite. Because once again, if you look at Tiffany Haddish, who's pretty much playing mostly the same role of the loud, ratchet, sassy, ghetto black woman, look at Katt Williams playing the same pimp role in almost every role he's been in. Look, Bobby Shaw from My Wife and Kids, one of my favorite Katt Williams roles of all time. I just love, what was it, the dance off he did with Mike, the rap battle he had with Mike, that was perfect. I go by the name of Bobby Shaw, brah, peace in the Middle East. I love that stuff. But yeah, it's like, you know what, he played a pimp named Slipback in the Boondocks. Yeah, I mean, that's really how he made his career, or open the doors. But at the same time, you know, Katt Williams, look at most of his early stand-up, folks. Of course, you have the gems like Poor Little Tink Tink, or Spelling in School, and it's like the silent letter. But if you look at most of his early stand-up, the same jokes can be applied to every stand-up comedy special he does, whether it be, you got to appreciate what you got in your life right now. Usually a skit about drugs, and not to mention the whole pimping thing that's in there as well. But it is a bit repetitive, but at the same time, it was funny. I mean, it was better than, you know, when he, well, lost his mind, for a lack of a better phrase, and got in all this trouble. And really, it's like, you know, the tortoise and the hare. I mean, honestly, and I mean, I know Kevin Hart's a competitive person, and that's what drives him. And I kind of think of the analogy of Kevin Hart and Katt Williams being like the tortoise and the hare, where, you know, Kevin Hart was the tortoise and Katt Williams was the hare, running circles around Kevin. You know, each comedy special just doing high numbers, being in all these movies, these TV shows. But then, you know, in the story, the rabbit, like, you know, just got lazy and took a nap, while the tortoise eventually passed him and then won the race. Same thing with Katt Williams. Apparently his taking a nap consisted of going to jail, doing drugs, and just getting into dumb trouble. And that's when Kevin Hart pretty much took over. And like I said before, love him or hate him, I just love, just like Katt Williams, I love the early Kevin Hart stand-ups. Like, I am looking forward to seeing the Irresponsible tour, just to kind of see what comedy special is going to be like. I hope that gets released this fall. I mean, I don't know if it would, because I'm pretty sure we would have heard of it by now, to be honest. But I would love to finally sit down and look at that special to see if it's better than What Now. I hope it is. But yeah, with Kevin Hart, it's just a matter of, yeah, it's kind of, oh, here's another good example. It's kind of like, you know, most people love Off the Wall compared to Thriller, because Off the Wall was like a black album. And hear me out on this, it wasn't until Thriller where it was more of a crossover pop album, you know, like in terms of black music. It's almost like, you know, like in the Bobby Brown story, when we saw Whitney Houston being booed at the what was it, Soul Train Music Awards, or the AMAs, I forgot which one. And that was because, you know, her black fan base thought she was a sellout for doing, you know, crossover music. that's pretty much how some people look at Thriller compared to Off the Wall. And it's the same thing with like Kevin Hart. It's like, you know, oh, he doesn't write his own jokes, or, you know, he's in these movies and you can tell it's like an over exaggerated version of him and stuff like that because it's more of appealing to a white audience. Same thing with the Tyler Perry thing, like I said earlier before. So yeah, in a way, I mean, it's almost like the feud between what was it, the Mike Epps and Kevin Hart beef a couple months ago. Same rules apply. You got like an older comedian who's been in the game a little bit longer, and there's a newer, fresher face on the scene that's been, you know, killing it in the box office, going out on these tours. And it's like, well, you really can't hate on someone who is taking advantage of their opportunity and their time. You know, like, it's their time to be in the spotlight. And yeah, I will admit, like, I was a bit taken aback by Tiffany Haddish being springboarded to the front of 2018, because remember, I think it was like a little after the Monique thing, or maybe right around the time the boycott happened. Well, when she issued a boycott on Netflix. That's when, you know, Tiffany Haddish began to pop up everywhere in magazines, award shows. And I feel like one of the more controversial things of Tiffany Haddish this year was the whole "who bit Beyonce's face" thing. That was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. But to be honest, you know, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Tiffany's comedy, I do feel like, you know, she seems like a very nice person. You know, just looking at some of the interviews she's been in, I think she was on like Ellen, a few radio shows here and there, and, you know, doing commercials and whatnot. And I mean, she seems to have like a pleasant personality. Like, yeah, I wouldn't mind, you know, sitting down just talking with her. But in terms of comedy, not my cup of tea. But that's okay. That's okay, because there's a huge fan base out there who do enjoy that. And I guess with Kevin Hart, I think that the thing that a lot of people have, and another analogy here, and kind of like Teen Titans Go on Cartoon Network, like, it's always on. There's always a mini marathon for no reason. And it's kind of like Kevin Hart. He's everywhere. It's like there's a movie every month with Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart is in a new radio interview on a TV show, but I mean, he's just taking advantage of the time, and I'm not mad at him. Make that money, man. Make the money. But yeah, so Katt Williams, love his old stuff. Like, I even did a video about how I didn't really like the Netflix special he did earlier this year. The first 30 minutes, wow, I think it was like the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes where I'm like, okay, this is the Katt Williams I was waiting for. This is hilarious. But maybe he'll do another Netflix special. I'll be on the lookout for that. But like I said, in that radio interview, not the part where he was talking about Tiffany and Kevin and all those other comedians, but during the roast session with Wanda, that was like the wild and out post Friday After Next Katt Williams that I grew up with and enjoy. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think, like, you know, these beefs and this bitterness should be present? I mean, if anything, it's just another example of, you know, black people against black stars, and it's just like the Beyonce and Michael Jackson fans going at it, and Prince and Michael Jackson. It's like, come on now, let's just come together. Or if you had your moment in the spotlight, but then you effed it up, then you gotta live with that. That's not to say that you can't get back into the game, but I'm just saying, like, you know, don't knock somebody who's on top just because you lost your spot because of something you did. But let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section below. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll talk to you in the next video.